Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. And today we're going to be taking a trip down time travel lane times two. And I say times two because the first trip we're going to be taking is we're going to talk about the story, The Liners of Time by John Russell Fearn, which is a pulp science fiction fantasy story about time travel from the 1930s. And our second trip down time travel lane is going to be because that story, The Liners of Time, is contained here within the pages of this magazine, Amazing Stories from May of 1935. Yes, this magazine here is in and of itself a time capsule of what life was like nearly a century ago in the United States of America. Because we're going to also look at the advertisements and hear some of the other stories and articles that are contained within this pulp magazine and see what was on people's minds and what was foremost in their thoughts and what they were concerned about going about their daily lives nearly a century ago. And it's going to be fun. So first of all, I should mention that this is all part of Rocket Summer. Rocket Summer is a reading event created by Michael K. Vaughan over on his fantastic channel, which I will link down below, where each week during the month of July, you read a piece of vintage science fiction from a different period, like the 30s, 40s, or 50s. And during the first week of July, you read vintage science fiction from the 1930s or earlier, which this certainly qualifies for. Now, the magazine itself here is Amazing Stories. Like I said, from May of 1935. It's in great shape. This is the original publication. This is not a reprint. It's got a great cover here by Mori, and the interior artwork is by Mori as well. I'll show you some of that here in just a second. And the price on this back in 1935 was 25 cents. And 25 cents got you quite a bit of entertainment. It got you 144 pages of double-columned stories of science fiction, adventure, and fantasy. So quite a bit for your money. And if you're curious, that 25 cents would equate into today's money, roughly about $5. So for about $5 or a little bit more than pocket change, you could get quite a bit of entertainment back in the 30s and the 40s with these pulp magazines. And these were extremely popular means of getting science fiction, fantasy, and adventure stories. These things were printed by the millions and they were very, very popular. Like I said, this one here is in great shape. So, The Liners of Time by John Russell Fearn. What is this pulp fiction, science fiction, adventure, fantasy story about? It's about time travel. It's set in the year 2000. And in the year 2000, mankind has figured out how to manipulate time. A scientist discovered that there was a heretofore unknown gas, an invisible gas, that was the very substance of time itself. And by discovering this gas, the scientist was then able to manipulate it and encase ships, these time liners, in this gas, and then use that gas in order to propel these liners thousands of years forward into the future or thousands of years back into the past. And they create time travel tourism, basically. Now, the laws of time are that time is immutable, according to John Russell Fearn. So once you go back into the past, if you did something in the past, you can't change it. So if you took two trips back to the same time, you would be doomed or fated to do the exact same things you did on your first trip. And that's how they get around the time paradox, which don't think about it too closely or it starts to come unraveled. Just roll with it. John Russell Fearn was a British author. He was one of the first British authors to actually write for the pulp magazines in America. And he was notorious as a chain smoker. He informed people that when he was writing these stories that he would smoke incessantly. He was a prolific author. He's probably best known for his story, The Sunmakers, and he died early at the age of 53. And that might be due to the fact that he was chain smoking incessantly, to use his own words, while he was writing these stories. But this story here, The Liners of Time, is set in the year 2000. And in the year 2000, our protagonist, our hero, is the captain of the flagship of the Timeliner Corporation. That's Timeliner number 48. And he is boarding his ship that is being loaded up with hundreds of tourists to go on a time travel tourism adventure into the future when he gets called into the office of the president of the corporation. And in the office, the president lets him in on his dirty little secret. And that dirty little secret is that they have been losing Timeliner ships over the last couple of weeks. They've been disappearing with all crew and all passengers lost right when they reach the Age of Troubles. And the Age of Troubles is called the Age of Troubles because no Timeliner has been able to materialize within that time period in the future, there's some interference with their machinery and they can't stop in the Age of Troubles, and nobody has ever come out of the Age of Troubles, which is why it's called the Age of Troubles. But he's going to send our hero, Stanford Lee, the captain of timeliner number 48, on this voyage anyway, because his timeliner has the most advanced instrumentation of the entire fleet, and he wants him to monitor what happens as he approaches the Age of Troubles. Never mind the fact that you're loading hundreds of people, hundreds of oblivious tourists who have no idea that they're being used as guinea pigs in this highly dangerous secret mission in which they might never come back from. They're just going to load everybody up and send them off here, send them off here into the Age of Troubles. And then it gets even dumber, because as the captain's returning to his ship, he runs into the daughter of the president, who has also chartered a billet here on his timeliner to go on this trip. Yes, the president's daughter is going on the trip as well, and she has brought a traveling companion, and the traveling companion introduces himself as the master of the Age of Troubles. So you have ships that are disappearing in the Age of Troubles, and now you have the master of the Age of Troubles, a person who by rights should not be there because nobody has ever been able to go into or out of the Age of Troubles, who's getting on your ship during this time period of crisis where you've lost hundreds and hundreds of passengers. And the captain looks at him, he thinks about it a little bit, he scratches his head, and he goes, go ahead, it'll be fine, and just loads him up onto the ship without worrying about it or giving it a second thought. And it's kind of dumb. All right, it's more than kind of dumb. It's a gigantic plot hole in the story here. But I will say this, the story is very well written by John Russell Fern. He's an excellent writer. His prose is very good. His pacing is good. He's got great action adventure sequences that he writes into it. The story contains all those classical elements of pulp science fiction. You've got time travel, you've got death rays, ray guns, you've got devices that can shrink people down or make them huge. The captain of the timeliner here, he makes himself 14 feet high with this growth ray, this shrinking growth ray, in order to escape out of this dungeon that he gets thrown into by the master of the Age of Travels. And you've got travel into the far future, and then they get knocked all the way back into the primordial ooze of pre-dawn of history, where they're rescued by Martians and brought forward back into their own time. It's a classic vintage science fiction story here from May of 1935. And despite its stupidity, and yes, it was stupid, it was still entertaining at the same time. And that's pretty standard for what you are getting here within the pages of these pulp magazines in the 1930s and the 1940s. So that's the liners of time. All right, now let's take a look inside of the magazine itself. Let's look at some of the advertisements that give you great insights into what was on people's minds at this time. What were their concerns? What were they thinking about? And just while I'm here talking about it, this is a pulp magazine. They're called pulp magazines because they were made out of this really cheap pulp material. And as I'm sitting here talking, little bits of it have been breaking off and crumbling and falling onto my seat. There's a little piece of the magazine there. But despite that, this one still is in really good shape, like I said. So you go to the very first page here, and you've got a full page advertisement for Skinny, new easy way to add pounds in order to attract women to you and to fend off bullies. So in 1935, instead of being concerned with being overweight, people were concerned with being too skinny. And you got advertisements here for how you could pack on some pounds. And then up here, I really thought this was interesting. Up here, you've got an advertisement right below my finger for New Deal government jobs. And this is talking about Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal. This is the 1930s. It's 1935. You are in the middle of the Great Depression is when this is issued. And FDR is trying to put together this government program, the New Deal, in order to get people back on their feet, give them government jobs, and restart the economy. It's a bit of history from the United States, and you've got a reference to it here in this magazine, a historical reference to FDR's New Deal, and I thought that was really cool. Really neat stuff. So let's flip the page, continue our time capsule experience, and you've got a advertisement here for car tires for Goodrich Firestone Goodyear with tires starting at $2.15. So if you are curious about what the price of a new car tire was back in 1935. It's $2.15. Let's continue our journey. And then you get a bunch of advertisements in here for whiskey. You've got advertisements for buying whiskey, and then you have a bunch of advertisements for how to quit whiskey drinking. Not vodka, not rum, not gin, it's all whiskey. So whiskey was very, very popular in the 1930s. Here you have Whiskey Habit, help him quit. So this is an appeal for an advertisement to housewives and how to get their husbands to stop drinking whiskey. And then over here you have New Way to Smoke. This is the vaping of 1930. 2025 vapes back in 1935 are their equivalent to vaping, the New Way to Smoke. And below that, you've got Good Liquor. You've got your Good Whiskey Liquor advertisement there. And smoking up top. You have Tobacco Habit banished for thousands of men. Quick, sure-lasting results. So quit smoking and quit drinking. On the next page, you've got more how to quit whiskey drinking. No more whiskey drinking. Home treatment that costs nothing to try. And of course, they have the happy family put together. So whiskey drinking must have been one heck of a problem back during the Great Depression in 1935. And in addition to that, you've got Love Drops, perfume secret extract that will make you irresistible to women. And then below that is Free Book Explains the Rhythm of Birth Control. So apparently when your perfume works, then you got to figure out how to use the rhythm method in order to prevent yourself from having a baby. But speaking of babies, then up at the top you have a baby in your home. So for women housewives who are having difficulty getting pregnant, you have an article up here on advice on how to get pregnant and have a baby. So these are the things that are on people's minds. Quit whiskey drinking, attracting women, have sex with women without getting yourself into trouble, and then up at the top for women who are trying to get pregnant. And at the back of the magazine, you have a full page advertisement on the back magazine here, the back page. Know the amazing truth about sex and love. The forbidden secrets of sex are daringly revealed in this book here, the book of the secrets of sex and love. And I thought that was very interesting as well. So what was on people's minds back in the year of 1935? Well, pretty much the exact same thing that is on people's minds in 2025. Drugs and sex, drugs, and alcohol. That's what was going through their heads here back in 1935. That and how to get jobs because it was the Great Depression. And that's it. That is Amazing Stories from May of 1935. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. And with that, I'm going to wrap this one up. And I'm going to say take care, be safe, and I will catch you guys next time.